Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and welcome to my cosmic update for the week ahead. What's going on in the astrology for week beginning the 16th of September? Well, we are out of the Neptunian weeds, thank goodness, and we're on terra firma. Terra firma in the form of Saturn. This planet is center stage in our astrology this week, and I'm going to be telling you all about that in a second. Before that, I just want to mention a little bit about these videos. They are not intended to be a blow-by-blow account for every sign of the zodiac, what's going to happen in the week ahead. For that, you can go to my audios on Astrology or on my forecasting, the written forecast. Here, this is about something a little bit more deep. We're looking at world situations, we're looking at the general lay of the land astrologically, and also getting such a lot of in-depth information about what the planets mean, what's happening at the time, and how best to manage your own lives against this planetary background, and also how to view events that are happening on the world stage. Astrology is a marvelous tool for self-awareness and also for observing how humanity is evolving as well. So on to Saturn. There are two reasons why Saturn is center stage this week. The first is because it's turning direct. It's moving from retrograde, it's stationary as it is as I'm speaking to you, and will move forward on Wednesday. I'll come back to that in a minute, because the second reason is that Mercury, the planet of communication and travel, transportation, dialogues, that's also angling Saturn, and it is at its most profound and most intense on Sunday. So it's getting there during the week. So this is going to be a week of important verdicts, important judgments. There are perhaps things that are going on in the travel industry, whether it's with aviation or trains or whatever, and we're going to see some important developments there. And things to do with education too. Anything that's got a Mercury stamp on it will have Saturn added into that, and that means all sorts of rules and regulations, orders, things being in place that are going to be important in the years to come. Those are the dynamics we're working with. Now, retrograde. Now, of course, a planet doesn't actually move backwards. It's not like a car. You don't suddenly get into reverse gear, then go to neutral and move into first. It's just a phenomenon. It's how it appears, and it is due to the relative speeds of the planets. But just because it's the appearance, it's a perception, doesn't mean it doesn't have a meaning. And it certainly has a meaning in astrology. When a planet is stationary, it's super powerful. Its properties are amplified. And in Saturn's case, we're looking at law and order, things I've already mentioned in connection with Mercury, judgments. Saturn is about boundaries. It's about setting limits, and it's about obeying rules. We tend to see the heavy hand of government on people's affairs when Saturn is in play, and new regulations come about and all sorts of things that have a real history behind them, or a scientific background, or a legal background. These are the sorts of things that tend to take precedence. Now, Saturn has been retrograde since April the 30th. So for about 5 months, it's been moving backwards. Now, while it's been doing that, think of Saturn in a way as an entity now, and think of it as a planet that tests us. It tests us, it tests our weaknesses, it sees where we're strong, it sees how we hold up under pressure. So if you can relate to a situation that has been difficult to manage over these past 5 months, maybe you've tried everything, you've thrown everything but the kitchen sink at it and still nothing moves it, it's kind of chronic, then that's got Saturn's fingertips all over it. But it may be that life generally has been difficult, you felt a little up against it all the time and maybe not particularly happy, and that too is a Saturn effect. And if you've got a birthday around about the 7th of the month, perhaps a little bit wider than that, because Saturn has been moving, of course, it isn't actually only on 1 degree, But that means the 7th of any month, but especially the 7th of April, the 7th of October, the 7th of July, or the 7th of January. These are the cardinal signs, and they've really been under this kind of Saturnian pressure. So as Saturn is stationary now, about to move direct, all that's been going on in these 5 months, this idea of Saturn probing your weaknesses and situations under a cloud or being very difficult, it's now at a point of delivery. Now, this doesn't mean that in the next week or the next couple of weeks, everything's going to be all right. Suddenly, magically, all that was wrong is now right. What it will mean is there are shifts and movements and change. And it means that you actually now have a handle on that situation. So whether it's what you want or whether it's what you don't want, you can move forward because of that. And I tend to think, and I say often in my columns, the hard decision is always the right decision in terms of Saturn. And what is really important is that this is the beginning of a period of about 6 weeks going into late October, where there are a lot of important aspects to Saturn and Pluto and all the other usual subjects, Neptune, Uranus, and all the usual suspects. So that there are going to be times when, things happen and you will need to have been prepared to make certain decisions. And as I said, the hard one is usually the right one. So an important period is beginning. Now, what I want to do is take a situation that's currently happening, and for this situation next week is crucial. So deep sigh, Brexit. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom is going to come up with a judgment as to whether Boris Johnson's decision or actions to prorogue Parliament, to suspend it, were legal. Now, this is already a precedent because now you have the judiciary, the law, looking in on Parliament, which is an independent body, and making a judgment. So if the judiciary, if the law decides Boris Johnson made an illegal move, then that will set a huge precedent. But whatever that decision is, it's still huge, because from there on, everything that will be set in motion for Brexit will go steaming forth. And that's just one example of how important a stationary Saturn can be. And it also incorporates all the things I've mentioned so far. We've looked at judgments, we've looked at all that decision making, and Mercury in there as well. So we have a real unfolding of what that means in the astrology. Now, I'd also like to bring it back to the personal again and have a look at what happens with Saturn. It's known as the planet of karma, and there's a reason for that. Saturn in mythology is related to Kronos, the Greek god of time. So in a way, all things come together in time for Saturn. Judgments are made, actions have consequences, cause and effect, comeuppances, chickens coming home to roost. That's all Saturn's work. So we can see that in the process of becoming at the moment. Now, sometimes karma is a repository for all things we can't explain. Oh, we don't like this, that happened, it's karma. Well, really and truly, that's not to take responsibility, and Saturn wants you to take responsibility. So it means you look back in your history, your remembered history, or if you want to think about past lives, maybe, but let's take a decision or an action that happens, a judgment that falls. You need to go back over that and see your part in the narrative. Maybe you feel you did nothing. It was circumstances beyond your control. But there will be, at a certain point, a different move you could have made, a different route you could have gone by, and that's the important thing. Because examining that, embracing it, understanding it, is using it as a learning tool. And in this way, and this is so important, Saturn becomes a resource. It's no longer the bogey of the planetary team, always raining on our parade, making things dull and awful. It's a resource. And I think that's really the thought I want to leave you with this week, that as we go through every day and beyond, because Saturn is strong for quite a few weeks now, if we think of this as a planet that can teach us something that is a benign influence in our life, then we are going to be working with the planets as opposed to fighting them all the time. So have a good week. Think about lots of things that I've said here, because they should be enlightening in some way, and certainly watch what happens with the Brexit result and some other things on the world stage, because we will see that that's been brewing for a while, and now it's ready to, to be delivered. Let's put it that way. Have a good week, and I look forward to speaking to you same time, same place next week. Bye for now.